There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode. I hope this finds you well and educated and caffeinated. On today's agenda, we're going to be looking at something that that often eludes many, especially in today's current climate, given that there is so much available. And I am dancing around the topic, specifically speaking, to indulge your curiosity a little bit more. It seems as though, in relation specifically to the articles that we've seen connecting towards conversations, but even more so with other areas in behavioral analysis and behavioral intelligence at large, in that because there is so much opportunity, there are so many avenues, there is so much data available to us, that this little engine of curiosity that exists within here doesn't really kick in as often as it might do. And specific with conversations, I'm guilty of it, as I'm sure many others are as well. When you get into those moments of saying, "Hi, how are you?" Are you even really aware of the possibility of the answer? Are you even really listening to what the answer itself might be? And that's really the topic of today, how we can gauge and drive our own curiosity for more detailed behavioral analysis insights, not necessarily guaranteed as to where it's going, but for conversational highlights, for connectedness. One of the lines that I stole from my TED talk on the topic, I don't know if I can steal from my own TED talk as I say that out loud now, is that we are more connected yet more alone. And that's an interesting concept when you think about it. Bob, you made the post on it on LinkedIn. Talk to us about curiosity.
Yeah, I think curiosity is an important part of moving a conversation from the mundane to the meaningful, because being curious is showing an interest in the other person. And if you want to elevate your conversation from something which is just transactional into something else, then you have to show an interest in that person. And there's nothing better than showing an interest in someone than to be curious, because curious will lead you to ask questions and questions about that person, which shows your interest in that person, which fulfills one of their basic needs, and that's to be seen and heard. And
Absolutely.
so it is a fundamental thing to it, no matter what area you're in, everything from interviews, job interviews, police interviews, all the way through to your mundane day-to-day conversations. If you want to elevate them up, then you have to show an interest. And the easiest way to show an interest is to ask questions and be curious about
Mm.
what that person thinks about something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there is some science in this area as it pertains to the way that we ask questions, and as you well know, the beginnings of transactional conversations can start with a "How are you?" You know, in the guttural common English parlance, it might just be, "You're right." You
Mm.
know, it's that opening gambit where nobody's really listening, and all we're saying in order to give yourself access to these kind of curiosity points is maybe change that opening question to um how's your day been?
Mm.
How's your day been? You know, with the whole how are you and these types of things, depending upon the person, they have a possibility to be closed questions, right? Not really offering a lot of room for scope and interpretation. How are you? I'm okay. You know, if I mean, I would be willing to bet on a kind of statistical level that if you bump into the average English person and you ask them how they are, you will get "I'm okay" or some kind of positive
Yeah.
affirmation, regardless of how they actually are, because that's a kind of cultural observation that we make about everyday English interactions. But for anyone outside of culture, asking "How's your day? How's your weekend? Has it been
Mm.
going since we last saw each other?" These types of things, there is no room to just go, "I'm okay."
Mm,
it requires story, it invites insight, and it will give you access points to develop your curiosity about. The same way of asking questions about observation you can make with behavior or in police interviews or in, I mean, I haven't explored other avenues, but in other avenues as well, I would imagine would open up the information you get based on the access questions that you ask, right?
mm. Yeah, 100%. One thing I'd add to that though is that this will only work like everything else that we discuss is you've got to be authentically, you've got to want to do it.
Yes.
If you don't want to do it and you're just doing it as a tactic because you've been told it works,
Mm,
then it won't. So you have to be genuinely curious about the other party and interested in the response that they give. And if you're in a conversation with an end purpose in mind, you've got to be able and willing to go off piste and to go
mm,
in another direction because at some stage, once you've got that commonality of perception and you've moved it into another type of conversation, then you will get that opportunity to move it back to what you want to talk about.
yeah.
But the I can't remember who said it. You know, one of the great fallacies of communication is that it's occurring.
Yeah.
Same with conversations. A conversation is an exchange of views. Too often, the conversation is someone has an objective and they impose their objectives on the other person to
Mm,
get what they want. Yes, you will get what you want, but you get to the stage to get what you want by getting that empathy with that person, that commonality of perception with them, that you're both there for the same reasons.
mm.
And then you can judge where the conversation's going and you can see whether your objectives are actually achievable rather than just bashing on and thinking you'll get there anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Authenticity drives so much of our interactions anyway, and most of the people that at least I speak to, I imagine it will be the same for you as well. But most of the people I speak to who have had little to no training in any kind of behavioral intelligence can still smell inauthenticity at a thousand paces.
Oh yeah.
And even if they are wrong, the second that smell comes up, it's hurt the potentiality of the interaction. And even in
Yeah.
this kind of connected age that we live in, where you're in one part of the country, I'm in another, and we can still do this. Even
Yeah.
in this connected age, without curiosity, given that there is an abundance of conversation and interaction happening, without that, we risk depth. And even for investigations, even for conversations, interactions, observe, all of those kind of fantastical big words that we can look at to gauge data, if they stay at the surface where the risk of depth is there is less
Mm.
elements to profile. There is less elements to gauge other areas of information in. There is less areas to explore with the individuals or the groups that it is that you're talking to. So these are some of the things that you can think about here. Imagine, dear viewer or dear listener, the dichotomy of listening to us if we don't really show any curiosity, authentic or otherwise, about what it is that we're talking about. Just imagine how awkward and dry and wooden that becomes and how disengaging. And then repeat that through every conversation and interaction that you have. Connection, like sincere connection, it goes out the window as a result. So you can think about the ways that you are interacting with everyone as part of a daily occurrence as a vehicle to practice this,
Mm.
right? As an opening gambit of sorts in that kind of
Mm.
weird way.
Yeah, the thing is that if you're going to have meaningful conversations, they don't just happen. You have to have some sort of process of how you're going to get into that conversation. You have to be tactical. You have to think about what is this person going to be interested in? How can I show an interest in that person that's genuine to me? And how can I gauge whether that person wants to respond in that way? Because some people
Mm,
just want transactional conversations,
mm,
but we must always, I believe, try to elevate them beyond that stage
yeah.
to something that is more meaningful. Because what do we want from any conversation? We want the person to walk away and for them to be memorable, that they
Mm,
actually remember us and that we spoke.
mm,
And it is curiosity is something that we can engender in the other person by the way we ask the questions. If they're not expecting that approach, you may initially pick up signals
mm,
that they're a bit, oh, well, I don't know what's going on here.
mm,
People, this person doesn't usually do that. Like if you go in and buy a coffee, next time you
mm.
go and buy a coffee, ask the person behind the counter what their day's been like, and you'll get a response, and it will depend entirely on their own perspective of the world and how they interact
Yeah.
with the world, but you will get a response.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, when I've done that, it's a response of, "Oh, people don't usually ask that." Well, that out of all those other customers in that shop will make you memorable.
Yeah. Absolutely. One of the questions I like is what do you recommend? I mean,
Yes.
regardless of whether I'm going to like it or not, what do you recommend? I mean, talk about a way to connect to a person um, rapidly, but the risk of that is the authenticity moments. Like if you're not
Mm,
actually sincerely curious, it's a weird question to ask that almost adds to the mechanical nature of the interactions they're in. You know, it's one of those things with curiosity, only an opinion, mind you, that
mm,
it doesn't look flashy.
yeah.
Like it's not like a super secret a CIA level skill. It's just this thing that we all have, and it was quite ironic that you posted that on LinkedIn the other day. I was talking to a few friends of mine about this idea of midlife dissatisfaction because we're fans of stoicism, and so we all get a little bit kind of thinking we're so smart because we're dealing with these big philosophical concepts and the notion of premeditatio malorum. So when you hit kind of 40s 50s, it becomes the change from everything is possible as a youngster to what is still possible
Yeah.
when you hit that kind of particular age, and this paradox of abundance in that we have so much, we become engendered to thinking about more.
Yeah.
Newest phone, newest trainers, next AI, flying cars, uh, uh, you know, uh, robot doctors with very little thought given to whether these should be being pushed forward. There is a lack of curiosity as to the
Mm,
implications. So when we build that into our conversations, just going through the motion of asking surface level questions and never really being curious about the responses given. One of the ways that I used to test memory and awareness, I mean, it's a different kind of concept, but it was with these questions. Is we'd practice interactions, and the attention was like, what content did they talk about for their job? You know, what were they wearing, just to test the memory skill of it in a different
mm,
format. But most people, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but most people, when I asked them what did they say in response to how are you, couldn't answer that question.
mm.
They were waiting for the what they considered to be the main content. You know,
Yeah.
there was no curiosity at that stage, which I always found interesting, given that those kind of opening statements really set the temperature, the tone, whatever the right metaphor is, for how the interaction is going to go. You know?
Yeah. And we're touching on there with what you say there is the person who becomes the first mover in that
Yeah.
conversation. So you have the for me, the conversation's split into three. You've got the introductions, you've got the exchanges, and then you've got the closure.
Mm,
But that introduction is your lead in and and your your opportunity to see what the other person wants to get from that conversation. And by what you say, you say, "How are you?" and then you say, "Or how am I?"
mm,
That's an event within a conversation, but then you can take it both, either way. You can go straight into, "Oh, well, let's talk about business then," or you can
mm.
say the curiosity type question. "Oh, so what's been happening with you this week then?"
Yeah.
Which is you showing a genuine interest in that person, which takes it from transactional, if it's in a business sense, like a salesperson or
Mm,
someone. It actually shows that you're not just trying to push your narrative,
mm,
you're willing to listen to the other person's narrative.
mm,
And this is the problem that I encounter a lot, is that people think that if they've got an objective from that conversation, i.e., to sell something to someone, they have to take charge of it. But
mm.
in fact, I tell everyone that you're better to be an observer in a conversation than a leader,
Yeah.
because the leader, and you'll get far more from it,
Mm,
because you'll be able to get that bond with that person by showing genuine interest in what they're saying, which will, their guard will come down a little bit, and
mm,
people will then probably be more likely to say things that they wouldn't say if their guard was up.
mm.
So
Yeah.
curiosity is better than any question.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed. And thinking about it in relation to um, things like confirmation bias, curiosity, once you learn to indulge it habitually, almost, can act as a kind of um, a tool
Mm,
or filtration element to try and fight the
yeah,
influences of confirmation bias, because your curiosity asks things of what you've seen, instead of just going, "I thought this, I've seen that, therefore I agree with it." Your curiosity will tend to go, "Well, hang on a minute, what
mm,
about this, or what about this in that particular situation?" Like, um I saw an article. Friend sent it to me because we talk a lot about cognitive offloading and the damage that AI is doing to
mm,
our human capacities, all that kind of stuff. And there was this young man that had built an AI service that, to quote the article, outperformed ChatGPT 5 and Grok 4 on their reasoning measures. And he's going, "Oh, this is fantastic, people are finally coming around to reasoning." I was like, hang on, by what metric are they measuring the reasoning parameters anyway? as
mm,
if as in, if it's not effective reasoning skills,
mm,
simply beating something else at a reasoning score doesn't really tell us about how that thing is reasoning in the first place. And
yeah,
that idea was born simply of curiosity around the outcome. I want things to think about reasoning a little bit more. There was some awful articles, about people taking their own lives because they
yeah,
use Chat GPT as a therapist.
yeah,
And that so my want for different measures around the use of AI services inclines me more towards the confirmation bias of this is reasoning more. But my curiosity then goes, well, safety first. What is the metric for
yeah,
the reasoning in that situation? That keeps me curious. That keeps me learning more, and I can look deeper at the information that's going on here to learn more about its outcome. It's the same with conversations. It's the same with, if you're watching a film, listening to music,
mm,
talking to your spouse for the 84th time that day. If you don't have any sincere care towards finding out, then your interactions, and your learning if you are purely sat in the observer position,
Mm.
is going to be hurt. It's going to
Yeah,
be damaged as a result.
yeah. When you mentioned film, there's lots of films that I can think of, where it's a straight narrative, and you
Mm,
find that within the first 5 minutes, they have some protagonist or some setup where they will tell you all the backstory.
mm,
And then there's other movies where it unfolds as you go along, and that
yeah,
that is based on curiosity. They have enough in it to make you curious about what's coming next, but you don't know.
yeah,
And I would say, certainly for me, the ones that make you curious are the ones that you go back to and you
yeah,
think, did I miss something there? Or you just, it's memorable. It's
yeah,
more memorable.
yeah. No,
And I
I
think
agree.
the first type is very lazy storytelling. The other, and we all know the
Yeah,
power of stories. And
absolutely.
and stories, telling someone a story, at least, they're going to be at least a little curious of why is he telling me this?
Yeah, yeah.
But storytelling, curiosity, they all go hand in hand. And overarchingly, this is all just part of behavioral analysis. This is just all part of being behaviorally intelligent and knowing what buttons that you can push
Mm,
without even trying.
mm,
I looking for this, I went back and looked at Cialdini's six principles, which
mm.
curiosity for I thought it was one of them, but it isn't.
No.
But then I noticed that you've got someone doing seven, nine pillars of influence, and when you look at them, they're just well. I think the article says it. I wrote it down a quote because I thought that was
Yeah.
fantastic in there. The charlatans of certainty who tell you that this means this and that means that, and that isn't
Yeah.
the way it works. That
No.
really isn't the way it works in real time.
No.
You've got to be able to be curious
Mm,
of what that person's doing, even if you're, as a someone consciously observing the other person to try and make that conversation
mm.
better. You've got to be curious of why did he do that? Why
Absolutely.
did he just say that? Why did he use those words?
Mm, yeah.
What is that telling me about this person in front of me?
Mm,
And how can I use that to build a better bridge with him
yeah.
or them or her, him, her?
Whomever.
Yeah.
And I connecting to that, I think that's why I personally have such a problem with the idea of master or expert or
Hmm.
number one or gold medal or award, whatever it is that the term that's being used, as the implication is, at least from my understanding of it,
Hmm.
is that you've stopped being curious. Like
Yes.
if you've hit mastery, whether it's somebody that's given you the title or you are a self-professed master or anything that exists in between, if you've hit that particular breakdown of it, then you've stopped curiosity, or you've at the very least slowed it down because
Hmm.
you've hit the end game. Where else do you go from mastery? Right? You've completed it once you've hit mastery in those particular situations. And yet, as I always say, in our game with behavioral analysis and the like, someone was just born right now that would potentially change everything that we know about all
Oh, yeah.
parts of it in those particular situations. How you can have a claim to not be curious and work in behavioral intelligence shows almost a gross misunderstanding of the material, or like mastery of cognitive dissonance,
Yeah.
because they are two ideas that are in complete opposition to each other.
Yeah.
We should always be curious. We should always be learning. We should. I think that was one of your taglines on your LinkedIn handle. Always curious, always learning, or something
Yeah.
along those lines. And
Yeah.
it's difficult to find something that's more apt for
Yeah.
for for working in this area.
Yeah. I think you're right about expertise and everything.
Mm.
Expert doesn't mean anything anymore.
No,
If it ever did mean anything, but it
yeah,
definitely doesn't, because anyone can call themselves an expert. What I firmly believe is that we all have the right to be wrong. And,
Yeah.
we can be wrong. And only last week I was in a conversation where I judged it horribly wrong because I completely misread the situation.
Mm,
And I was able to retrieve it, but I got it wrong. And I
mm,
don't mind admitting I got it wrong because we all do. We're
yeah.
human. And
Yeah.
in fact, being able to say I got it wrong is actually quite a positive thing because the other person would think, well, hold on a minute, he's saying he's wrong. I get it wrong. So there's that bond that you've got between them that you're not always right. Whereas if you are always right or pretend to be always right, people aren't going to warm to you. And maybe that would affect their ability to connect with you and put trust in you.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I mean, because we mentioned him last time, a good example, again, only an opinion, mind you, is Darren Brown. Now,
Mm,
Darren Brown, for the people that don't know, is a mentalist. I think psychological illusionist is his term, but he comes from
mm,
a magical background. So a lot of his performances, not all of them, but a lot of his performances contain tricks
yeah,
where the mechanicry is such that it will force the outcome, right? It will
yeah.
force the specific nature of it. Now, if he wants to connect more directly with the people that he's performing for and performing with, there is the awareness of being too perfect. Like, as in, if you get things so spot on, so accurately, so, on the money all the time, if you add just that little bit room for doubt, creates curiosity, it creates intrigue, but it creates connection because this guy's not just showing you a trick, he's working a skill, which is the
Yeah,
trick itself, but
yeah,
this is that idea in motion. And everybody, I mean, I say everybody quite flippantly. He's known all over the world now. I would say he's an English national treasure, but he's known all
mm,
over the world now as a result. But this is that illustration in action. It's a trick is cool and everything, but if it's perfect, it stays at the surface. The
yeah,
reason most of Darren Brown's tricks, and indeed the feats that he does as well on the other side of it that aren't tricks, the reason that they are so impactful for the individual is because of the curiosity that he creates, is because
mm,
of the stories that are connected to it, and because of the depth that is an inherent part of it. With you mentioning a film and TV before, I've started getting into this TV show recently. It's made by the guy that did the Knives Out films, with Daniel
okay,
Craig, the murder mysteries, and it's called Poker Face. It stars Natasha Lyonne, and she has this skill where she works as a human lie detector. But it's not in the sense that she studied or she comes from a scientific back or whatever it is. It's just an inherent skill. So when
mm,
somebody lies to her, she has this kind of almost guttural, reflexive Tourette's-like tick where she just
mm,
goes bullshit, and it just kind of falls out of her face that she recognizes that. On the surface, that is too perfect. Somebody says something or does something that's dishonest, so we as the viewer, we can't learn about the mystery that's unfolding if she spots and catches everything.
mm,
So how do you invert that storytelling to keep us as the viewer curious about how these
mm.
kind of elements are going to unfold? And it's a great way of playing with that narrative. And everything that we've spoken about here is under the umbrella of the importance of curiosity in the interactions we have. You don't just have interactions with people; you have interactions with adverts. You have interactions with cars and TV programs and politicians and books and YouTube and
Mm,
podcasts. If there is no creation of that, then everything stays at the surface, which for behavioral analysis, intelligence, and awareness
mm,
is kryptonite. So I invite every one of you that in at least one interaction a day, moving on, just ask a deeper question.
mm,
The more you ask a deeper, it might feel mechanical at the start, it might feel awkward, but the more you expose yourself to it, the more naturally these questions will sit in how you ask them. So the more authentically you'll be able to be curious about what the responses to these kinds of things are. You know,
mm.
there's a Benedict Cumberbatch batch video I like. He's performing this whole thing. He stopped doing this and doing. It's in an American accent, so it's clearly some kind of poem. But it ends with "Stop thinking and just do."
Yeah,
And in those moments, stop thinking about what kind of question or the right open close cognitive, all this kind of thing. Just ask a deeper one, something that goes a little bit beyond the surface level of the interaction. That's it. Gain some comfort level with that, and then reflect on what you've learned from doing it, and roll it into the next time. Roll it into the next time. Roll it into the next time. It's a simple exercise that you can do anywhere there are other people, and it is a gift that will keep on giving in terms
mm.
of the connection and insight that you'll get. Bob, what are your final thoughts on this, sir?
I think, well, about Darren Brown to start with, there is, I think we mentioned one of his videos
Mm,
in one of our other episodes, but he does one where he's trying to pay for items with blank pieces of paper.
mm,
And he uses various techniques in that, but one of the ones he uses is curiosity.
mm,
But the thing that I was going to start by saying is that he shows you when he gets them wrong. He's not, he's showing that he is fallible.
yeah.
But the curiosity was he just asked someone, "Can you help me with where the railway stations are from here? I came this way, and that is showing curiosity and also showing that the other person's opinions through that curiosity are important and that they know the area more than you, which
Mm,
again, it distracts them from what they're doing at the time because I think he was putting the money in the till at the time, but it distracted him, but it also made his brain think, well, this guy wants to know my opinion about something.
mm, mm,
And so it works. And all of the Darren Brown videos I've seen, he does tend to put in when he makes mistakes as well,
yeah,
which again is making him more human. Like you're saying,
yeah.
it obviously works. So that final word for me is just that be human, admit to making mistakes, and be curious. Don't just take a conversation as a transaction where you
Mm,
get into a point of the end of it. The real magic happens when you can get a slight connection with that person and they
mm.
start to tell you things. And it is a skill we're losing,
It is.
unfortunately. I go to a cafe quite regularly in a town near to me, and I used to go in the Costas and all that type of thing, but I now go into one that we years ago we'd call a greasy spoon. One, because the guy remembers me. Hey, oh, I know you.
Yeah.
How are you going? And but also because he shares things about himself, and he's curious about so what have you been up to this week, how's things life been treating you and all this sort of thing, and it really works. You feel engaged, and that is why I go back.
Beautiful.
There might be an occasion when I don't go there because I don't want that, but
Yeah.
we've all got to understand that as well, that we're not the same person every day.
Yeah.
We just want a quiet time and sit with a coffee and just reflect. And that's the art of it, is knowing what type of conversation you're in. But anyway, before we go, next week we've got a special guest on, and the guy is special. This type of thing he would be able to talk for hours about. He's in the hospitality industry. His name's Kieran Bailey, and it's going to be quite special. So please be here to hear what he has to say.
Look forward to it immensely, even from my side, and I get to talk to him directly. So if you've got anything out of this episode, guys, make sure that you're subscribed to whatever channel it is that you're listening to this podcast on. And if you want to be able to join in with these lives, you need to be a part of the Facebook group. There are over 14,500 of us here now, but we still need some more activity. We still need some more live questions coming in. I know people have lives and work and jobs and everything else. So if you're in the group, these are where these are streamed live out to. So if you want to join in firsthand, and get your questions in as you've seen other people do before, and that's the place that you need to be. Make sure you answer the little group questions on your way in, because most of the time if you don't, we won't see them, as it's part of the rules for the group itself. You have to ask the questions, answer the questions. So yeah, with that in mind, we'll love you and leave you, and we'll see you next week for that special interview, guys. All right, take it easy.